Dear colleagues, my fellow teachers, we have been in the training of assessment, but in all our assessments we discussed the meaning of assessment as learning, assessment of learning, and assessment for learning. But in all details of assessment, we did not discuss about what we call rubric for assessment, a tool which is used to distribute marks to assess the learning outcome as a learning of the learner is taking place. I have chosen a topic from Senior 4 which is have a relationship with Senior 2 work, Unit 3, formation of ionic bond and metallic bond. The subunit is the ionic bond. The lesson title, formation of ionic bond. The learning objective. So I think during the training of assessment, we did not put emphasis on the learning objective, because when you are assessing, you need to state the learning objective. And then from the learning objective, you have to indicate also the specific objectives to which the rubric is going to be considered or is going to be set from. Then by the end of this lesson, my learners will be able to explain the formation of ionic bond between sodium and chlorine. Now the specific objectives: to identify the correct atoms using symbols on the periodic table of elements, to indicate appropriate charges of the ions, to explain satisfactorily the formation of ionic bond. Now, these objectives will lead us to what we need in the question. Explain how ionic bond is formed between sodium and chlorine. Sometimes you find a teacher preparing a question like this, or setting a question like this, and give this question 2 marks. But probably when you analyze using the rubric as a tool to distribute marks for this question in relation to specific objectives, you find that it will carry 6 marks. For example, there are number of rubrics, that is number 1 and 2. The rubrics here to assess are 2, 3 rubrics. And performance criteria for each rubric: 1, you will mark the identification of atoms by symbols on the periodic table of elements. Here you will see the scores for each rubric. A student who has maximized the marks will get the 2 marks if the student has identified properly the symbols of the element as you have set in the rubric for assessment criteria. If he has mentioned the 1 mark. Failed to identify any correct symbol, get 0. The second rubric: indicate the appropriate charge or ions. Sodium ions, chloride ions can be in symbols or in words. So 2 correct, get 2 marks. Probably will get 4 marks. Then gets 1 correct, sodium ions or chloride ions, get 1 mark, or if failed to indicate the appropriate ions, will get 0. The third rubric is to give the detailed explanation, to give the satisfaction of the question, the formation of ionic bond. Now, the student may give the explanation. Sodium loses 1 electron, which is then transferred to chlorine to attain stability, resulting into ionic bond. Or may draw these structures: sodium, chlorine, the arrow indicating how electron in red is transferred to chlorine. The resulting will be sodium chloride. So now in this case, the student has provided the full explanation, or explanations that will lead to the correct information to how ionic bond is formed. There will get all the marks, 2 marks. Remember the score for each rubric. Sodium loses while chlorine gains, and this has not indicated the result. Is able to get 1 mark because he did not see after sodium has lost and chlorine has gained what has happened. Then here for this, the score for this rubric will get 1 mark. Failed to explain the formation of ionic bond or appropriate illustration. He can fail to explain, good, or fail to indicate the appropriate illustration on how the bond is formed, ionic bond is formed. This student will get 0. So now, when a student has given the full explanations and has attained all the specific objectives, that student automatically will get full marks, 6 marks for this question. But if he has given half information, will get 3 marks. That is 3 marks. And if I fail to give the correct information, will get 0. The comments also, as for each question, you need to put the comment. And this comment has to be a constructive comment, as we had it in our previous trainings about assessment. The comment has to be building, has to be attracting the student to put more effort to gain skills, competences, and knowledge, as the competence-based curriculum is advising to be implemented by teachers. This tool considers and analyze all concepts that were written by the learner during answering the question. Then, according to assessment rubrics, the marks which assesses or gives to students remark their origin, and those marks are not implicated to punish the student rather than to improve his learning process to the next lesson. And the average of the marks in class testifies how teacher taught the assessed lesson. By the end of the assessment, the teacher should repeat the lesson to the student or change the teaching or learning approach. Now, here, if you find a student has got 0 totally when you have set the rubric, that is assessment criteria. So this tool, you have to repeat the topic or the unit, because all your specific objectives you have said, the learner has not achieved them, so you cannot proceed to another lesson. So I thank you very much for attending me. This is the assessment rubric I have prepared for you to share on how we will be marking properly our students. Thank you very much.